I'm Officer Anthony Johnson with the Cincinnati Police Department, and I am also the Immigrant Liaison Officer for the city.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be back. I am Defilia Diaz, and I am an attorney. I deal with immigration law, and most of my work with U visas.
Uh, Back again to talk a little bit about U visas. We'll open talk about traffic stops and things that police and community members encounter when that occurs, and then maybe break down some laws that we deal with when it comes to U visas and or just common questions that people may have about laws, maybe even OVIs as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. So let's talk about traffic stops. That is a different topic that we have normally dive into, and I think that is a very good space for us to talk about what would be the good interaction with law enforcement, and what is the expectations, right? And
Absolutely.
where the culture clashes on traffic stops.
Yeah. So number one, I think the thing that we need to define is what a stop is as opposed to what a stop isn't. So most times when you encounter police, you're going to deal with three types of manners or ways. One is casual, where like you might see an officer walking down the street, maybe working a detail at Kroger's or something like that, and the contact is maybe a hi or how are you doing or something simple. No laws are there, no reason to stop anybody, nothing to worry about. You know, if you don't want to say hi to the police or you don't want to speak to the police, you don't have to. There's no issues or problems or laws against that. Um, the next thing would be like a detaining or a stop for an investigation. This is where the traffic stop comes into play. So this would give us reasonable suspicion or probable cause that an offense has occurred. And we'll keep it simple for our example, but let's say a traffic stop. And Day, let's say she runs a stop sign. Shame on you. And so I observe it, so I'm going to stop her. That gives me the reason to be able to stop. So the important thing to understand as far as the police and the community member encounter is the simple fact that once the stop is made, you should stop. You should stop at a safe spot or area. It doesn't have to be exactly on a dime, you know, where the lights are turned on. Um, and then try to remain as calm as possible. Even police officers are nervous with traffic stops because it's one of the most dangerous things we do on our job. Um, I know there's probably going to be emotion and there's going to be some tense feelings and stuff like that with a traffic stop because let's face it, nobody likes being stopped at all. So it's not going to be something that is going to be all pleasant and happy. But what you are obligated to do once you are stopped is to identify yourself, and that's where we kind of get confused as far as what the law is and isn't as far as that. So what I mean is, I stopped Day here. I approach the car. Most times, an officer is going to introduce themselves, tell you why they stopped you, and then ask for identification, maybe vehicle paperwork, insurance, stuff like that. Um, now,
But I think before you go forward, it is that the person that got stopped remains in the car.
well, yeah, absolutely. So, again, for everybody's safety purposes, you should remain in the car or wait for the officer to approach the car. And again, I know there's going to be stress and some tension when it comes to these things, but understand, there's a lot of things in play that keep a lot of people here safe. So, and we'll get to the little things that you can look at after the stop once we go through the process of the stop. So, again, I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm Officer Anthony Johnson. I'm with the Cincinnati Police Department. I've stopped you because you ran that stop sign. Did you know that you ran the stop sign?
I would say no.
Of course. And then, and then, and then afterwards, I would say, well, do you have your driver's license and possibly your proof of insurance?
Let's play that. I say I don't have my license.
Right. So again, it's best that you have it, but things happen. You can leave your purse somewhere, leave your wallet somewhere, what have you. As long as you could provide that information, and then I could locate you with that information, whether it be on our computer or what have you, we would be good to go. The issue that you don't want to cause is that once you are stopped, okay, officially detained, you have to be able to identify yourself. So that doesn't mean that you physically have to have your driver's license on you. But in the state of Ohio and across the country, you have to provide three things to identify yourself. It would be your name, it would be your date of birth and your address. By law, you are required to provide that to an officer that stops you for an investigative stop. So once you provide that, then you have satisfied that law. And if you don't want to ask any other question or answer any other questions, you don't have to. But again, it's a traffic stop, so there might be some questions that you may have, that would clarify, what would happen next in the next stops or next steps. I mean,
Yes.
so once we've done that, I have the license and everything else like that. Most officers are going to go back to the car, make sure that we can validate the information and see if you are who you say you are. And then simply after that, it would just be whether I would issue a citation or not. With the citation, it's not an admission of guilt. It's just a simple fact that you are getting a court date. So if you don't agree with me
Hmm.
stopping you, you can fight it, argue it, debate it in court. And that is your right to do. And again, rest regardless of whether you're a citizen or not, you have a right to go to court and contest whatever citation you have in this case.
Okay.
And so it's important to understand that even though a citation is not a happy event, and
Mm.
you might get upset and you might want to have some choice words with the officer that gives you that citation, you definitely don't want that moment to do that because, again, you're going to be emotional, you're going to be upset, but know that you're going to have your opportunity to be able to tell your side of the story if you don't agree on it. Um, Once you receive your citation, you sign it saying you're receiving a copy, that you're getting your court date, then you would be free to go from that traffic stop. Some things that you want to consider dealing with the traffic stop is that first and foremost, the police officer's information is going to be on that citation. So you're going to know who I am, even though you may forget the fact that I've introduced myself and told you why I've stopped you. Number two, we have body cams. So our body cams record the whole process. So me introducing myself, talking to you, telling you what's happening, all of those things are going to be recorded. So sometimes people will be, hey, I want to know that this is happening. Is there going to be any record of this and things of that nature? We record all of our stuff. So that way, and again, not saying that you could have your own car recorders and things of that nature if you want to, but we record all of our, if you want to call it a transaction,
Hmm.
we record all of those.
Interactions.
Yeah, that too. And then it's also important to know, again, and I reiterate this because a lot of people don't really think about it or realize it, but you have your opportunity to go to court and contest your ticket. Some people, because it's a citation, they just blanketly say, "Oh, I'm getting a ticket. It's over with. I can't fight this or whatever." But that's not true. You can absolutely go to court. There are a lot of things that could help you if you feel like you did not do that. There's a ton of cameras now that are all over the city. People have their own cameras. I mean, even there's insurance companies that put cameras in people's cars now, so you might even have your own camera to be able to show whether you ran the stop sign or
Mm.
you stopped like you were supposed to. And and so in that event, there's a lot of things out there for you to be able to contest it if you choose to. And if you don't, I mean, you can just simply pay it out. People do get citations. It happens. It's not good. I've had citations in my life, and I pay them out. And I come from a police family, so that never ever goes well. So um, it is an experience.
What do they do if they do not have a license, or what do they do? I think that the stress comes in not being able to communicate with the officer
Sure.
because they don't speak English. So tell us about the beautiful thing that we have here in Cincinnati PD with
Yes.
the cards, and I will get one of them.
Yes. So we actually issue what they call English second language cards. So this you could put on your dashboard of your car, or you can keep it up in your visor, or somewhere where you can safely display it, so then officers will know that you need a translator, and that you not understanding is not because you don't want to adhere to what we're saying or answer any questions that we may have, but you may not understand what we're asking you. And so at this point, we all understand, especially in the city of Cincinnati, but clearly how it works here is that this is in Spanish to advise how to use the card. And this is for our English second language learners. On the back, it's actually for police officers to explain to the officer, hey, I'm trying to do everything that you want me to do, but I'm not going to understand that. So it doesn't have to be that this is used for a Cincinnati police officer. I've gotten calls all the way from Atlanta PD that are like, man, this is awesome. Can you send us a digital picture of this? And where do you get these? And our city actually makes them. My chief approved these, so then we can get these out here and make our interactions with our community members safer. So this is a beautiful tool to be able to allow police officers and a lot of our immigrants and refugees to be able to communicate at the same time when we're coming together, so we understand that there is a language challenge. So, but we have them, and we hand them out all the time, and you can go to any district to get them if you need them.
Thank you. And this can be sent to anybody.
Mhm.
So it's just not exclusively for police.
No.
So we have a meeting this morning that even some neighboring police department did not know that this existed,
Mhm.
and we're going to be distributing this more. So if there is somebody in the channels, that they wanted to have this for their own agency or send it home, just reach out and I will send them to you. So it is very important because while the traffic stop is happening, I get the panicking it's occurring to you as well.
Mhm.
And it occurs to anybody. It doesn't really matter if it's undocumented or documented.
Mhm.
It happens to all of us, but I'm assuming that when you don't have documents and driver license, you are the level of anxiety and fear increases, right?
Sure,
Because
sure.
you don't know the uncertainty that is going to happen to you.
Mhm.
So this will lessen that anxiety because you will be able to communicate. Let's say, read it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Again, if you put yourself in another country and you're trying to talk to people and you don't understand what's being said, imagine the anxiety of just that. And it's just simple
Mhm.
as that. Now magnify it with you dealing with law enforcement, or you dealing with, our fire brothers and sisters. You're trying to explain what's happening and you cannot because of the language barrier or
Mhm.
understand. It could be traumatic because, again, a lot of the times we deal with people that are dealing in situations of crisis. And here this clearly tells us, hey, you need a translator. And the beautiful thing about our police department, I'm sure a lot of our police departments in the neighboring areas, they either have officers that speak other languages, or we have translation lines that we can use. So we will do the extra steps to be able to communicate and make sure that we're on the same page with all of our community members. But this, instead of trying to explain it, this tells us really quickly that this is what we need to do.
Perfect. Let's revise the advices, the advice that you have here. It says you place this card on the visor.
Yes.
Right, is the first one. When you are stopped, immediately put this card in the window for the officers to see it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So immediately, this is what you
Mhm.
have to do. And the third, it is interesting, and I think that we can explain a little bit further. It is place your hands in the wheel until the officer gives you other instructions. Why is that?
So again, the officer doesn't know you. You don't know the officer. So you don't want to make the situation, which again, a traffic stop for police officers is one of the most dangerous things we do. And again, as a driver, if you're stopped, you're going to be nervous. It kind of keeps everybody saying, "Hey, we're on the safe page here. We're not doing anything, bad or anything that anybody needs to worry about." So we can both remain calm and be able to handle the traffic stop safely.
Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
going to say it in Spanish.
Yeah.
Just make sure that everybody understands.
Mhm.
So, cuando sean detenidos en una parada de tránsito, mantengan las manos en el volante hasta que el oficial le dé otras instrucciones. Okay?
Yes, and they don't have to be stiff. They don't have to be like, you don't have to hold the steering wheel. Just stay calm, stay calm, huh? Stay calm, and then again, we can handle this peacefully.
Yeah, and interacting with a lot of officers and trying to educate the community, it is basically they don't want to see you that you are just trying to hide your hands or putting your hands somewhere where they are gonna feel that their life is a jeopardy. So if when the police officer is approaching your window, if you are scrambling to just get something in your purse, or you are
Yes.
just diving down to get something in the passenger seat, it's going to make the officer very uncomfortable and nervous because they don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So let me say that in Spanish.
Yes.
Ok. Entonces, cuando el policía los detiene, los hace las paradas de tránsito, las manos visibles tienen que estar para el oficial, porque si ustedes están tratando de buscar algo en su bolsa o no ven sus manos, eso los hace sentir extremadamente nerviosos porque piensan que están buscando armas y que los pueden estar dañando. So the hands always have to be visible. The hands cannot be in the pockets.
No. And again, when people are nervous, You tend to do nervous things. So like, you might be like, oh, I need to get my ID really quick, or I need to go. We'll be able to handle that. You know what I'm saying? Just all in due time.
Breathe.
Because breathe and relax. There's no reason to make it more stressful than it already is. Because again, a traffic stop is stressful.
So we have a very good question for Vanessa Flores.
Mhm.
Are they available in Hamilton County? We are in Ohio. Hamilton County is where we are right now. So I'm assuming that you are in Ohio.
Yes.
And yes,
they absolutely are. So we the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department works with us. They have a community relations unit as well. So we have shared them with them. Now, whether their department out on Hamilton Avenue has them, I'm not sure. But you can always contact us or come to a district, and we will bring them to you.
Yes, yes. And if you want to contact my office, and we'll be happy to send it to you. And if you have a church or you're a member of a church where you wanted to distribute these cards, please call us, and maybe you will have to just print more.
Yes, yeah, we will. We will, because these are important. Again, it makes it safer for not just a community member, for the police officer as well, because this is communication without even using words. This allows us to know that we can really communicate and understand each other, as opposed to some type of guessing game or trying to figure out, what's actually happening here.
Okay, let's go with this with a fourth advice. Wait for the officer to come to your car and read this card. Do not move in a sudden way that is gonna make the officer think that you are looking for an arm, which is kind of what we were saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me read in Spanish. Espere que el oficial se acerque al vehículo y lea esta tarjeta. No se mueva de manera que haga pensar al oficial que usted está buscando un arma. So I guess here it is moved in a very slow motion way.
Yes.
Slowly.
Yes, absolutely. Slow, deliberate movements that, you're allowing the officer to see, what you're trying to do. So the officer doesn't know you, and as much as you know yourself, and I know most people think officers are sometimes mind readers. We are not. So just to be able to show that that you're cooperating and that the officer is there, again, it just eliminates doubt, keeps everybody safe, everybody on the same page, until we can figure out what actually is happening here. Because our example was a traffic stop because she ran a stop sign, but sometimes we're stopping people for safety reasons. There might be something wrong with the vehicle, or maybe something happened, and so it's not always a bad thing that a police officer stops you.
Yeah. Thank you. The fifth, if you are not understanding what is happening or what the officer is saying, ask for an interpreter. Si usted no entiende lo que el oficial está diciendo, pida un intérprete. So it is very important that before I'm talking from the legal perspective, it's very important that you don't know what is happening, please ask for an interpreter, and do not say yes or no because you feel safe that will be the answer, because you don't understand. You don't understand what it has been asked, and you don't understand if you are confessing to something or admitting guilt to something. And, you don't understand. It is just basically saying, I do not understand. And that is the safest way to go. And that is the officer's role, to make you understand, right? Or to help the communication. So here, the one that is leading the conversation, it is you guys, the officer in that situation.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you from my side of it, learning Spanish, that there are words that are similar in Spanish that are in English, but do not mean the same thing. So sometimes you'll hear words and you'll say, yeah, because you think it's the same word that it would be in English, that it's in Spanish, and it's not. And so it's easy to misconstrue or mess up communication, because, I've done that a few times. So it's important that if there's any type of gray area or whatever whatsoever, have a translator. Make sure that we're on the same page and that the message is clear. Even from your aspect of what you might be telling the police officer why whatever happened. And in Day's situation, she's going to say that she stopped at the stop sign 3 times before she went forward. So, of course, I was standing there and watched that she didn't. So, but she at least gets to explain herself and tell me what it is, so I understand.
Yeah, and I have in the stop as well. It is. I have to remember what we have talked about it, even though that I do not need to be completely fearful, but I remember that one time something was happening with Lucas, and I was pulled because I was going fast. And so the officer pulled me over, and I remember, okay, just keep calm, do not
Yes.
move, do not do anything sudden until he came. And he gave me a warning. Most of the officers, I think that we are with the conception that they want to make our life miserable. But I don't think so. I mean, I have met really good human beings that are in the force,
Mhm.
and thanks to them, we are able to file U visas. So anyway, I don't think that that's you are out to write tickets all the time, and you are out for
No,
pulling people over.
no. So a lot of the times, and this is not any secret or anything, we'll get complaints about certain areas that are hazards, where we're having
Mhm.
accidents or we're having dangers
Mhm.
and things like that. So we'll have targeted traffic enforcement in those areas. It's not a personal thing, like we're trying to get people. We're just trying to make sure that we issue
Mm.
citations and enforce the law there, so what those intersections and spaces are safer. So then when people travel through there, they have the mindset, oh, let me slow down because there's an officer there, or let me see if I need to be careful here.
Mm.
Because we do have some areas where we have to have some targeted enforcement to keep people safe. I mean, that's what
The
the
pattern
traffic
of
citations.
conduct, like you see
Yes,
that more people are speeding in certain area that they are not following.
absolutely. But it could
Hmm.
just be accidents. I mean, we
Mm.
can have accidents that occur in a certain spot, and enforcement might help us slow people down in those spots. And
Hmm.
so, I mean, again, I know a traffic stop is personal for each person that gets stopped, but on average, an officer could stop two or three people during a shift. So it's not really personal to the officer. It's just based
Hmm.
on what they're asking us to do as far as enforcement, or if there's target areas, things of that nature. Because again, if we're not enforcing it, and if there's no concern about the law, then you're going to have more accidents. You're not going to have less.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Here, Olga Lydia Butterflies is, are they available in Oklahoma? So, and what other counties are they available? So,
They're I can't speak for Oklahoma, but if you want a card, if you send your information to me, I will send you a card, because these cards are not specific to any location. They basically explain, you know, why there may be a miscommunication, and then what the officer needs to do to clear that communication. So it's for anybody anywhere.
yeah.
So
Do you want to share your contact information?
yes, I can. So again, my name is Anthony Johnson. My email is Anthony period Johnson. It's ANTHONY period JOHNSON at Cincinnati OH.gov. And that Cincinnati is all spelled out -OH.gov. If you send me an email, if you send me an address, and you want one of these cards, I will send it to you.
And if it's difficult for people to understand his email address, just go to my office and I will send it to you as well.
That works too.
We have one more traffic question.
Mm-hmm.
So, when an officer enters the license plate number into their system, do they get information if the person has a license or not?
That's a good question. So that also depends. Most of the time, we could say yes. So again, if I stop Day, and I run her vehicle license plate, so she her plate is registered in the state of Ohio, makes it completely easier because all the information comes up immediately. Then I can see actually her picture, all her information, and then it will tell me if her license is enforced. Now, sometimes if you're stopped from other states, we may not get the exact information that we would get from Ohio, or it might be on delay.
Mm.
And so sometimes, like some people get mad if we're sitting in our car a little longer than you think we should, but it just depends on how fast the information comes to us. But for example, like if we get it from Kentucky, there's a little bit of delay on it, but we do get that their license is enforced, or the plates are enforced from Kentucky, as an example from a stop from out of state.
So what happened when the car is registered in somebody else's name and you have a different driver?
So yeah, and that's also a challenge too. So again, we don't know you as a driver. So when we initiate the traffic stop, we may be able to get information on the plate before we approach the car.
Mm-hmm.
When we approach the car, if we see that somebody different, again, another reason why we're asking for information, so we can obtain that. then try to figure out, again, if the driver's license is enforced, if the person that we're talking to is the person we're dealing with. Again, it is law that you identify yourself. So once you're stopped for investigatory stop, whether it be a traffic stop, citation, what have you, um, you have to identify yourself, and then that's where we can go on from there.
Okay. So, do you have more questions? No. Okay. So the fear for immigrants, it is that that traffic stop is going to lead to an arrest with ICE.
Sure. So 99% of all of our traffic stops do not end in that whatsoever. We do not enforce immigration law. Okay. The risk is, what happens when you're stopped. So for example, if you just don't have a license, that's not a deportable offense. That's a citation, unless you've had multiple driving without a license citations. Then it could turn into an arrestable offense down the road. But if it's just your first time or whatever, you're going to receive a citation, and then whatever the stop was for, and then you'll end up going to court. And even that's confusing a little bit, because we recognize some licenses from outside of the United States. So if you're coming from a country that we recognize your license and your license is still good, then you actually have a driver's license, but sometimes you don't know that. So it's important also to go to court, because then you can validate or show that you have a license that's enforced from a country that we accept their driver's license. So the other thing is, if it's an accident where somebody is badly injured and things of that nature, that's where it kind of changes the level of it if you don't have a license, because instead of it being an accident with injuries, depending on the accident, it could be that could up the charges from just an accident, and that could be possible, grounds for deportation. But the important thing is to hopefully get a driver's license and drive legally. And I know that's a challenge for some people right now, because the state of Ohio is not issuing them to immigrants, or they're issuing the refugees, but they're issuing them to immigrants unless you have obtained a certain status.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and I'll go back to Ohio, we don't have the best public transportation, but we have really good public transportation here. We would want to be able to lean on that a lot more than put ourselves in a situation where, we get a citation for not having a driver's license, or being involved in a horrible accident where we might be at fault, because then it ups, everything from a vehicular assault to vehicular homicide, or somebody dies from an accident and things of that nature. And heaven forbid any of that stuff happens, but it's not worth the risk to go one day to work or go to the grocery store or something like that, and you don't have a license.
What happens if somebody has a driver's license from Florida, the car is registered in Ohio, and they live in Ohio?
So as long as the license is current,
Mm.
what I'm saying, you can have a license from Ohio. And so most vehicles are renewed every year. Now they offer you to buy 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They probably do 10 years now, because they want money. So but your license is typically only renewed every 4 years. So you might move to Florida, to Ohio from Florida, and be here, and your license is still good and may not require renewing. So that would be okay. Now, typically, again, you might want to renew your license in Ohio and get it changed over sooner, but it's not illegal to have that happen. But your vehicle will probably change quicker, because, like I said, typically your vehicle is renewed every year.
Okay.
So that's not anything illegal. That's perfectly fine and typical. It happens quite often.
Another question that I get from my clients,
Sure.
it is, when they get me pulled over in the system, will that show you if they are undocumented?
No. So there's nothing in the system that says whether somebody's documented or not. The only thing that we may run into is that there's no information in the system. So, and that doesn't necessarily tell us anything as well, because not to get all into to how the information is collected and gathered, but if, let's say, you're a refugee, I don't know, we'll just say you came from West Africa, so you may be issued a social security card, you may be issued a driver's license, and sometimes, depending on where you're resettled, you might have a driver's license from New York. but then they resettle you to Ohio. So we may not have that information,
Mhm.
and sometimes if we're running something from New York, that might not come across our screen. So just because you'll have the license and stuff like that doesn't mean it will come to our screen. And sometimes it does. Most of the time, knock on wood, it would, but sometimes it does not. So that doesn't necessarily tell us that they're undocumented,
Or no, or not
or not.
the
Right.
status of in immigration.
Right. Yeah. No. That nothing like that. Again, we don't have. Only thing we would have is local information and then national information based on maybe driver's license, warrants, things of that nature.
Okay. So would it warrant for an arrest will come up in your system?
What? Say that again.
A warrant for their arrest, like a
Yeah, if they have a warrant, and it's from, again, it could be a small warrant from California. That doesn't necessarily mean that they want us to collect somebody or get somebody,
Mhm.
but it would show up. It's supposed to show up. So it just depends on how that goes. But yeah, it should show up or would show up. But there have been times in my career that somebody's had a warrant and they might be 2 counties away, but the warrant doesn't require us to take them if they're 2 counties away.
Mhm.
So it just
Yeah.
depends. But most of those warrants, again, I mean, if it's rare that it would be an immigration warrant or something.
Oh,
It would
yeah.
have to be something completely special or outside of
Most
what we
wanted,
normally do.
more.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be something to that level. It wouldn't be, they're wanted for, some immigration violation.
So it will not come up. So in that sense,
Mhm.
Immigrants, undocumented immigrants, they can rest calm, and that's what I tell them. Is not gonna show up. Some of the immigrants, they have not get in contact with immigration, they have not been in contact with some law enforcement, so therefore they don't have any information
Mhm.
for them to appear in the databases.
No, some confusion lies in the fact of reporting. Like, so if people have to report every so often to an immigration office,
Mhm.
sometimes they'll come down here. Sometimes they'll come to the district because it's not. It needs to be more clearly defined because literally it says you need to go to a police agency and things of that nature on some of their paperwork. And so there have been times I've been called down here
Mm.
and I go, oh, no, you need to go out,
Blue
to the
Ash.
location in Blue Ash, right?
Mhm.
And I have to give them the address and everything else. And that's just for reporting. That doesn't mean they're necessarily in trouble or anything else like that. So those things happen. And again, they understand that. We understand that as law enforcement. And again, I can't say enough about undocumented is not illegal. And it is exhausting that people listen to TV and commercials and things of that nature. But undocumented is in between statuses, and a status has not been established because even being marked for deportation is a status. And so if you're in between, there's no status that's been declared. And I know lots of people that are in between and waiting for court and things like that to be settled and handled so that they can gain status. So if again, if the country decides that, hey, these people are, there's a certain amount of people that are marked for deportation because they violated crimes and things of that nature, then have at it. That's what, let's do what we do. But let's not blanket statement everybody just because somebody is in between documents or in between some type of documentation and say that everybody's bad, because that's not true either.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So, like, that is for only a traffic stop, a simple traffic stop.
Yep.
So let's venture into a DUI stop.
So here we call them OVIs.
OVIs.
They used
okay.
to be called DUIs.
Okay.
So operating a vehicle under the influence, because now it's not just alcohol anymore.
Mhm.
So unfortunately we're dealing with drugs and things like that where people get behind wheels and are operating vehicles. So with OVI, again, it's a higher level of offense
Mhm.
here. So you will, if you're found through the investigative stop to have evidence of being intoxicated on a drug or alcohol or what have you, you will be taken into custody. That's an automatic if that evidence is there. Most of the time though, again, unless you've had a number of OVI arrests or what have you, you're gonna go home that day. So it's not going to be something like you're going to go to jail and we're going to lock the key and you're never going to get out. No, now you're not going to be able to drive a vehicle. You're going to be under suspension and things of that nature, and you will get a court date and you will get a citation and all that stuff. But as long as it's just an OVI where you're operating a vehicle under the influence and there's no injury to people or harmful, where there's like serious medical injuries or death resulting in the fact that you operated a vehicle, after the investigation and everything else is done, you're going to be able to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, and again, an OVI just on itself is not a deportable offense. Okay, now if I operate a vehicle and then I
Mm-hmm.
horribly cause an accident where people lose their lives and things like that, yes, then it changes the whole thing. Now it's going to be a higher charge, and now you would be open, or I would be
Yeah.
open in that case to deportation even after the court process. So it's not deportation right away.
Yeah.
You'd have to go through the whole court process. You have to be found guilty of said offenses and everything else, and then after that, and that's not even a guarantee that you would be marked for deportation then, but it's possible.
It is very convoluted because even though that you refer to an ICE officer, that doesn't mean the ICE officer will put a hold. And but most of the time, when there are very high crimes, they will put a hold, and it's very convoluted because if they are able to pay the fine, well, the bond. They pay the bond and then they get transferred to immigration for immigration custody,
Mhm.
and then they are dealing with immigration case, but the criminal case has not been decided, and the immigration custody is not going to be transferring to the criminal courts, so they will not be traveling, transporting them back. So it is a convoluted process, but when it's a higher offense, we're dealing with completely a different ball game.
Yes. So yes, but typically the standard would be what you are innocent until proven guilty here, and that's anybody and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue would be 99% of the time. Again, there might be other immigration things that are happening to an individual person that are outside of what happens with an OVI arrest, but we would play out the OVI arrest all the way into the end
Mm-hmm.
because the person could be innocent. It may not be a true OVI, and I'm just saying because again, you're innocent until proven guilty. But once it happens and somebody is found guilty of OVI, then that opens the door to where you could be deported. And again, it's not a guarantee that you are. There are people that have had OVIs, been found guilty, and have not been deported.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's where the ICE detainer comes in. Whether or not they're gonna ICE is gonna, it's a different agency that is not you.
No.
So it's a
Yes.
different agency that
Yeah.
will
Under the
determine
Department of
that.
Homeland Security, absolutely.
So that it has to be clear.
Mhm.
So here's a question, a really good question that it was almost sleeping in my mind. When you pull somebody,
Mhm.
when you're checking the plates,
Mhm.
will you check if they have insurance?
Yes, by law in the state of Ohio, you have to have insurance while operating a motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may not be so. Let's say I let you drive my car. So if you're driving my car, I have insurance on the car, so you would be covered. So it may
Mm-hmm.
not be your insurance, but as long as you're operating a vehicle and the vehicle has insurance, that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, by law, whatever vehicle you're operating must be insured. Okay, and yes, the officer will ask, "Do you have insurance?" That was one of
Mm-hmm.
the questions I said at the beginning. Maybe ask for your ID after I introduced myself. Tell me why I stopped you.
Mm-hmm.
You have your driver's license, proof of insurance. Because in the state of Ohio, you cannot operate a motor vehicle without insurance.
So what about if I go to drive your car? Your car is not, you do not have insurance, but I do have insurance.
Right. Well, so as long as your insurance covers you for whatever vehicle you can drive,
Mhm.
same deal, same deal, and
Okay.
that happens too. So before long time ago, but I did not own a car. I had a license and I bought my own insurance. So whatever I drove, I was covered.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. And to buy a policy for insurance, you don't have to be documented. So
No, not at all. You can own a vehicle and everything, and it doesn't matter about your status at all.
So the key here it is that you can still get insurance even though that you do not have immigration status, and that is a key because we know that undocumented immigrants are still driving even though that do not have a driver license.
Mhm.
But what I say is, okay, we cannot do anything about it because we do not control the ways that the laws are in the states where you're residing. But
Mhm.
the only thing that we can control it is you purchasing the insurance.
Right. So I give you an exact perfect example
Okay.
of why this exists. If if I'm a parent to a kid that is 16 years old, and they have a driver's license. Okay. I am not born here. I don't have a driver's license. I can own a car. I can pay insurance, but my kid can drive the car. And so that's why that opportunity is there, because not everybody's going to be a driver. I know in our country, most people are drivers, but not everybody's a driver. You can see more and more now, especially younger people. They definitely don't care about owning a car. They will go get a license, but then use Uber or Lyft or and stuff like that to get to where they're going. And shoot, if you live downtown, you just jump on a streetcar. So you have a lot more of your younger generation that it's not even that important to own a car, don't care for a car, and don't want a car note. And if that works for them, more power to them.
Yeah, this Uber as well.
Mhm.
So if you're in a place where I have clients that because they don't have driver license, they use Uber everywhere,
Yeah.
and they are just cutting that risk, and they feel safer using Uber. But also, I have clients that they have decided to drive even though that they don't have driver license. So that is very powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's an important part of being able to understand what opportunities and things that you have here and how to best, use the laws for what works for you. Again, you might have a driver's license and insurance because of your job, but you don't have to own a car. So you literally, like I said, can use Uber to go to work, maybe drive for Amazon or something, deliver
that's
packages, come back, get an Uber back home. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there is many creative ways to live.
Mhm.
So once again, if you need those cards, please contact Officer Johnson or contact my office, and we will make sure for you to have those cards for you, for your community, for family. It just is not specifically owned or used in the city of Cincinnati or in Hamilton County.
Is that another question?
This is an immigration question that if they need a parole, I will answer those questions later.
Yours. I think that's your side of the fence. It's not mine.
So, what has been the news in the U visas in your world? Have you had any recent interesting U visa certification?
The most important thing that we've been running into the last few times is that people are not. They may be a victim of a crime, but they're not reporting it or not finding themselves on a report. So, for example, let's say we were here and a person decided to rob us. You go to the police and you make the report, and I was robbed too, but I didn't report it. And maybe I'm thinking because you're reporting it that, hey, it's getting reported. No, you have to make sure that you're reporting it, you're getting your information to the officer. So then again, it can be investigated and we can assist you with the U visa if it's a qualifying crime. Because if it's, again, and I've said this a number of times, if it's not on paper, if it's not told to us to be able to report it, it didn't happen because we don't know it. So it's important to make sure that you're reporting your offense, even though my friend here, will be reporting it and talking to the officer and everything else. And it could be she understands English, I speak Spanish. So I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead, report it. And I'm thinking she's speaking for me and she may not be. Again, she's in her own case in trauma, so she might be like, no, they pointed the gun at me. This is what happened. And then forgot about me, and I was standing right here and got the gun pointed at me too.
Exactly. So
make sure that you're reporting it. Make sure you're talking to the officer. And again, this is why we have the translation line. We have officers that speak different languages to be able to assist you and make sure that you are being assisted as a victim. Again, I've had 3 or 4 reports here where people have come here in the last month and said, hey, I'm supposed to be on this report. I was there. And literally, like, one person actually was the one that called it in. I had to go get the radio run and go, yeah, you called it in and you're not even on the report. So then I got to get them with the investigator, make sure that they're adding themselves to the report. They give all the information that we need. So again, we stop the people that are committing these crimes from doing them, because that's the most important thing. I know the crime itself is, stuck to the person that it occurred to, but if they do this to this person, they're going to do it to the next person, and they're going to keep going until they're stopped.
Very important. We have a case that we're trying to just file the
We
report.
absolutely have an example. Yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Yes, and I also have many other examples at the office
Mhm.
where right now I have a consult, I still a consult, but I don't know if it's gonna be a case or not. There was a shooting, and it was a homicide in Hamilton City, so it's
Mhm.
Butler County,
Mhm.
at a party, and somebody died there, and he did not wait for the police. He just left,
Mhm.
and I guess that in high tension setting, everybody is just
Absolutely.
going everywhere. It's like a
Absolutely.
commotion in that moment.
Mhm.
But then afterwards, he hears from friends and family that they are applying for U visa, so he was like, I was there.
Yeah.
But the key point of the U visa, it is being able to cooperate with law enforcement. So that key part, it is that you have been having interaction with law enforcement, and you were not having that interaction after the crime occurred, is going to be difficult, and it's going to be lying on the discretion of the officers. um,
Yeah, but I also want to be able to say that your information is important to us.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? So the whole reason for that, because U visas are provided to people that witnessed the crime.
mhm.
So if you witnessed it and you have really good information for us, that again, we want that.
Yeah.
You know?
And changes from agency to agency, so you are very lenient and very flexible, but I have dealt with
Mhm.
other agencies that said, well, I cannot confirm that you were there, and sometimes it seems they can take that approach. It seems that they wanted to just the U visa, right?
Sure. And again, and that's going to be somewhat of a battle. But I'm going to tell you, as an investigator and as an officer, that investigates these things, if you have somebody that has information that's going to help you, you want that.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
more information for us to be able to solve the crime, the completely better it is for our victims. Because I mean, if it was a homicide, think about the victim's family. They're going to want some closure. They're going to want us to do the best we possibly can to solve this case, and to be able to handle it in a way that's respectful to the family, but also, again, keep somebody from going out here and doing this to somebody else.
And I guess that's us in a kind of way. It is completely true. I will take that stand, that just listen, because the officer, the detective can assess if that person truly has information,
Yeah.
because you can cross question the information that you have about the incident, and you
Mhm.
can verify whether or not he was there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of detail that goes into investigations, period, let alone shootings, homicides, and things of that nature. And even with some agencies, we cross pollinate. So, like, if something happens in Norwood, we might be hand in hand assisting them and helping them.
Mhm.
So by all means, if there's information and things like that, and we can obtain that, we want it to be able to get as much information about this case and solve it as we can. And if you come in and you have pertinent information that's going to help us solve this case, we want you on the report. We want that information.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
And I have seen it happening
Oh, yeah.
many times.
Most of your shootings and homicides are not going to be people giving information right away. You're going to have people that come up a day or two later when they feel more comfortable to be able to provide the information. And we as law enforcement understand that. Yes, it would be great to have every witness that we had right there on the scene to give us everything, but realistically, people are going to be afraid. It's a traumatic experience. There are things that occur that we know rationally that it may not happen that same day or maybe even a day or two after that. Mhm.
We have a question from Alejandro, and it's in English. So
Oh.
kudos to Alejandro. Good afternoon. What would happen if the sexual abuse happened 20 years ago,
Mm.
never been reported? Could you still make a
Mm.
report and get the certification form, like the certification for the U visa?
So remember what the U visa is for. So that's the number one thing. The U visa is for immigrants that can trust the fact that if they're a victim of a qualifying crime, and a sexual assault is,
Mm-hmm.
that they will not feel like the police are going to do anything to them but assist them as being a victim of a crime. So we would need a report, an investigation, and being able to handle that, to be able to say, hey, here's our, if you want to call it, deal with you. You're going to help us to try to solve this crime to the best of your ability. We're going to help you to be confident in our job and what we're doing, and trust that we're doing the best we can for you as a victim. That's literally what this means. And so in this case, 20 years is a long time. If there's evidence of this and there's stuff that's out there, then absolutely bring it forward. Let's do everything we possibly can for the victim. Um, but 20 years ago, compared to like if it was 20 years forward from now, I'm not sure how much information we have. So again, not trying to read into it, but let's say, did the victim go to the hospital? Did the
Mm-hmm.
victim, report these things? That's evidence.
Mm-hmm.
We will take that right now. Things like that we would need to be able to say, hey, we have an offense, and now we're going to go forward to assist this victim. We would need those things. So you may not. And there are people that we have helped, after the fact, even years after the fact, that went to the hospital, got an exam, did things like that, was just too afraid to talk to the police. Those things are evidence to what we may be looking for as far as an investigation and be able to assist the victim.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if this person was local, I want to sit down and talk to the person and see what information and what things we have to be able to see what kind of offense we have, and then to be able to go forward to assist the victim.
You never know. The thing is that
Mhm.
you never truly know what are the facts and what is the type of evidence.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will say that I don't have evidence, but there is evidence.
Yeah.
So go and report. I will say if it's something that happened to you or to your family members, go and report.
Mhm.
I would say that with sexual assault, and it happened a long time ago, uh, it takes so much courage and time for the victims to actually vocalize what happened. So
Yes.
even though it doesn't ended up in being a U visa case, at least it is the victim is seeking for justice, and that it will be healing for the victim. So
Absolutely.
do not keep wondering whether or not there will be justice. Open the door for it,
Yeah.
and go and report it. You never know. The circumstances and the coincidences that it can't unfold. Maybe the report that you will do, it ended up having some leads that that the police will have, and ended up connecting maybe the abuser with other crimes. You don't know, so please go and report the crimes.
That's well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a couple few minutes, 6 minutes. Do you have any other questions over there? No, no. What else do you want to talk about, Ubisa? We don't have. My dad is over here and saying, "Good job." My dad is a fan.
Awesome. Awesome. The biggest and most important thing is to have faith in the system. Okay, if you're a victim of a crime, and again, I know it's a challenge, and especially if you're coming from other countries where law enforcement is not as dedicated to the community work. They're more military country, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's hard to be able to, it's kind of like I'm not to talk about the banks in Central and South America, but there's a lot of lack of trust in
Mhm.
banks because banks are not like financially insured and things like that, like up here. And so people don't like to put their money in the banks because they might lose it, a lot easier than up here in some countries. Well, policing, I understand, is the same way. If you're in Argentina, police officers may not be very good and positive and right, and some things may happen. And not to knock all Argentinian police officers, because I know a few of them and they're awesome, but there's some that might not be good there. Here,
Mhm.
we have a system in place to help protect and assist victims the best that we possibly can. I mean, not just with law enforcement, but we have victims advocates, we have safe houses, we have a lot of nonprofits that we work with hand in hand to be able to assist the victim from the time the person becomes a victim all the way through the court process and even beyond. So if you need help, the most important thing is to report it. Start the chain of being able to get that assistance, helping you as a victim or somebody else that you may know that's a victim of a crime. And if it's a qualifying crime, then we will help you get the U visa certification so you understand that we want you to assist us. We don't want you to be fearful of reporting and thinking we're going to do something to you. Because at the end of the day, if we can stop the bad guys, we can stop the crime from occurring, if we can stop, we can prevent the next victim from being the next victim, then we're all winning this because we want our city to be safe. So report, 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 and report some more, and we will be here to help you.
Yes, well said. That is very important. You don't know when the reporting is going to help you in the immigration relief. Some of them, they will get discouraged because the U visa is taking so long to
Yes.
get adjudicated.
Forever in a few days.
Exactly. And not only to get the bona fide determination, to get the work permit,
Mhm.
but also to actually get the U visa.
Yeah.
But that's a different battle. I will say, well,
Mhm.
what else do you have? Do you have any other option to apply for an immigration relief? And if the answer is no, then do the U visa. Because right now, ICE also has a policy. I don't know if you knew, but they have a policy right now, ICE, that is a victim-centered approach. So that
Hmm.
means that if they encounter a U visa applicant or a victim that had not applied for a U visa or T visa, SHS, or VAWA,
Yeah.
they have to ensure that they are protected.
Yeah. So again, and I can't say this enough. The Department of Homeland Security and the people that I work with here are amazing at assisting our victims. Again, we're here to help victims. This is what policing, law enforcement in general, the whole 9 yards is for. If you're a victim of a crime, we're here to assist you with that. We're here to try to stop the offender, and then again, prevent other people from being victims. The Department of Homeland Security I've worked with a number of times, and they are amazing at assisting our victims, especially trafficking victims. So by all means, I can't say it enough. If you are a victim of a crime, report it. If it's a qualifying crime, we are here to assist you. Again, not just with policing and locking people up, but we have Women Helping Women, we have the YWCA, we have a lot of nonprofits, Casa de Paz, as far as safety houses. I mean, safe houses, I'm sorry. There are numbers of services here,
Mhm.
and the U visa certification included, to be able to help you as a victim. And the first step, which may be the hardest, but reporting it is the key.
Yes. Don't live in the absolute world, in the sense like not all police is bad, not all attorneys we are bad, all no human beings are bad or good. So please make sure that you report the crime, you give an opportunity for the officers to change the definition that you have grown with. There is very, very different. You came to a different country, and the things are done differently here, and we have a duty to learn, to be open and flexible, to learn the new ways of living in the United States.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Thank you very much. See
Okay.
you next month.
Thank you. Next month.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
I know that was great.